Poll shows Bernie Sanders' popularity among all voters is plummeting. Does it? Well, let's look into it. One of the arguments Bernie Sanders made, okay, he's more electable than Hillary Clinton. All right, so here's what this article is claiming. Sanders' popularity among all voters seems to be declining considerably in the last few months, however. Our new CNN poll puts Sanders' favorability rating at 46% compared to an unfavorability of 45% among registered voters. This is only the latest poll to have Sanders at basically even. Compare that to where Sanders was at the end of his 2016 presidential bid. Sanders had a 59% favorability rating to 36%. Sanders was able to hold on to much of his popularity through last year. So what's changed? I'd argue that Sanders was benefiting from not being in a competitive campaign. That's a fair observation. When you're not being thought of as a viable threat to win the party's nomination, opponents tend to lay off. The last time Sanders was thought of at least a minor threat to win the Democratic nomination was March 2016. So according to this article, the good news for Sanders is that his net favorability rating is at about the same level as other people who have declared their candidacy for the Democratic nomination. So by this article's own admission, they're saying, hey, when Bernie was just kind of like doing his job, being Bernie, his favorability was higher. Now that there's officially a race, so there's more opposition and they're being vocal, which is true. I mean, as soon as Bernie announced, the smear pieces came in. So that is an accurate observation. Does that justify the headline, oh, his popularity's plummeting among voters? No, the opposition's just louder. And there's more of it. That's something that happens during an election season. So right away, via the own verbiage in this article, they fished for a headline to draw conclusions from a poll that I would argue weren't really there. It's an election season. Poll numbers are going to reflect that. There's more people in the race. Opposition is louder towards every candidate. All right, so here's something else I wanted to point out. Jordan Sheridan points this out. CNN puts out a poll to push the narrative that Bernie Sanders' popularity is shrinking across the board. Only problem, just 32% polled were Democrats or Dem-leaning independents. Sanders polled at 74% favorability among Dems and Dem-leaning independents. And there was also some shakiness on millennials that were polled in this as well. So again, you have another skewed poll, and you have a headline that arrives at a conclusion that the poll doesn't really support, and even the own verbiage in the article is acknowledging, hey, his favorability was higher when it wasn't an election season because the opposition wasn't so loud. You mean like something that happens to pretty much every candidate? That's how politics works. I mean, look at Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton had that to the nth most degree. Her poll numbers would start highest before she spoke. She was incapable of raising her poll numbers. And they would decline like a roller coaster, not just like, oh, it was significantly high when he was just a senator. Now that it's an election season and the opposition's louder and there's other people in the race and it's officially a 2020 race, it's not as high as it was. And this article even admits that he still has the best chance out of any nominee. And what's the specific verbiage that it used, just so I'm totally transparent? Yeah, so look at this. The good news for Sanders is that his net favorability rating is about the same level as other people who have declared their candidacy for the Democratic nomination. Sanders, though, a paragraph down, Sanders, though, may have to convince Democratic voters that he... and there's a typo. Look at that. Typo, CNN. That he electable. There should be an is there. Huh? See that? Is. Should be is there. Sanders, though, may have to convince Democratic voters. Man, they're so exciting for those... CNN gets so stoked for those misleading headlines about Bernie, they don't even use spell check. We proved it here in real time. They're going to edit that later. They're going to throw that is in there. You saw it here first. Here, let me show it again. Somebody get a screenshot of this. Boom. He electable. Screenshot. Boom. You're seeing it here first in real time. So, this own article basically, I wouldn't say debunks its own headline, but proves that it's a misleading headline. So first of all, the poll only indicated so many different groups. So to say it's plummeting among all voters is just not true. Second of all, to say that it's plummeting, no, it's adjusting the way it would adjust in an election season, which happens to every candidate in the history of candidates running for an office. But you see how they jumped it. But people I guess people are jumping off the Bernie train. I guess I got to get on board somewhere else. No, you don't. You don't. So, whenever it comes to a poll from CNN or basically any poll, you really have to read the details. Because the headline, especially in this case, isn't going to give you an accurate assessment of what the poll's really telling you. What the poll's really telling you is that Bernie Sanders is leading the herd. And that's what happens during an election season. So, good job, CNN. As usual, knocking it out of the park. Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. You can tweet me an article at Ron Placone. We'll go through it together and make